You are listening to the Manument Podcast. My name is Casey, and I'm here with my buddy Glenn Johnson, investment advisor and founder of Jabez Financial right here in the Uncasville area. All right, Glenn, jumping in here. And one thing I've learned from doing this show with you week after week is that retirement is not just a financial transition. It is a full life transition. We spend, decades building our careers, our routines, our relationships, and even our whole identity around work a lot of the time. So even when people are financially ready to retire, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're emotionally ready. In fact, I read an interesting article this week I wanted to talk to you about. It said that if you are a urologist or a video editor or a judge, you've got one of the most stressful jobs in America. Nearly half of workers say that they feel that pressure, and high achievers often expect retirement to bring relief to them. But when their whole identity is tied to work, that transition can be a lot tougher, like I mentioned. So I'm curious, Glenn, if you can speak to this, and with your years of experience, what changes have you seen in retirees in those first year or two of retirement?
Yeah, well, when I was reading that article as well, and I was looking at how the video editor was on the near the top of the list of stressful jobs, that really took me by surprise.
Me too.
But then I realized this morning, as we're working through some technical difficulties with the equipment that we have here, I get it. Now I can see there can be some stress there. But stress it's an interesting thing, because we all know how stress can cause cancer, and it can make any situation far worse. In fact, that's why a lot of the prescription drugs these days are geared towards eliminating the side effects that stress has caused.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of drugs, legal and illegal, used to eliminate stress.
So instead of asking ourselves, how do I avoid stress, you're suggesting that we ask maybe, how do I respond to it? Or how do you think we should look at stress, Glenn?
Well, I'd like to offer a different perspective on stress.
Okay.
And how about learning how to use stress for your benefit? So yes, the bad stress causes all kinds of horrible things. It makes all kinds of terrible things happen. However, as powerful as stress can be, why not figure out how to harness the energy for our benefit, as opposed to just having it suck the enjoyment out of life?
Well, I want you to help us understand what that looks like in real life, because most people do not naturally associate stress with something positive. So can you give us an example?
Sure. With every aspect of life, our faith, family, friends, fitness, finances. Now, well, first of all, we have to understand that isn't it true that there's good stress and bad stress? For example, when our faith is tested, we can learn how to lean into God and get closer to Him. When our family is stress tested, we can pull closer together and form stronger bonds. When our friendships are tested and stressed, well, we get to know each other better. When our bodies are physically worked, we get stronger. But when we're financially stressed, that's when I want to figure out, well, where's the benefit in that? Like when you're transitioning from working into retirement and you don't know how it's going to pan out. Or maybe you've just had it at work and you can't get out of there soon enough. Or how about when you're finally retire, and then like in '08, your 401k plummets and it just destroys your retirement plans? Then what?
Well, and I think those are the kinds of situations where it's really hard to see any sort of silver lining. I think most people would just see fear and uncertainty in times like that.
Right. Now, it is really hard to see the upside of financial stress, but there is one. See, just like an enemy helps us by exposing our weaknesses, and weaknesses that we wouldn't necessarily have recognized. And when experiencing any kind of financial stress, it reveals to us something that needs to be cared for. We want that warning before we experience the real hardship. Mm-hmm. See, financial stress can be like a check engine light, in the car, informing us that something isn't right.
Oh, I like that analogy. I think that's really good, because it's almost like the warning itself isn't really the problem. It's what you do with that warning that matters. Are you going to address it? Are you going to take the car in? Are you going to ignore it? Just keep driving. How are you going to proceed and address this warning that you're being given?
Right. So the fact that we have a warning have that financial stress as a warning. That's the blessing. That's where you're like, wow, I'm glad I'm aware of this. No one likes to see the check engine light come on in the car, because it says, hey, guess what? Something's wrong. Something isn't working properly. No one's happy about it. But that said, wouldn't it be far worse not to have the warning? See, like the best way to handle any accident is to avoid it in the first place. And that's what that check engine light is for. And that's what that financial stress is. That's how it can benefit us. Mm-hmm. So if you're experiencing any kind of financial stress, or if you've got, any concerns at all for that matter, financially, you want to just consider it as a financial check engine light. Mm-hmm. And let's get it checked out. You'll be glad you did.
Well, let me ask you this, Glenn, because you've worked with a lot of people approaching retirement. You got 25 years in this business. So I'm wondering, why do you think financial stress feels so different than stress that happens in other areas of our life? What sets it apart?
Well, that's a great question, because the financial stress it almost seems like, well, if I just had more money, that would solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's what keeps people working longer than they need to. Sometimes it keeps them from enjoying what they've accumulated over the years. And the financial stress, if it's not cared for properly, it actually, whether you either overcompensate by working too long, or you'll just try to ignore it and live just for today. Mm-hmm. So how financial stress affects us differently than other types, there's no direct benefit from the stress itself. It's really just a signal. It's just a check engine light. Like if you're exercising your muscles and you stress them out and there's pain and you get stronger as a result of it. Well, the financial stress, we're not getting stronger from experiencing the stress. It's just a check engine light. And that's just the signal that we have to put some work into. So that's why I said there is no good emotional stress financially. It's just an alert.
Yeah.
So that we can pay attention to what we do need to take care of.
So I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners who are thinking about retiring within these next few years. So let's talk specifics. Let's talk action items for them, Glenn. What financial, let's say, check engine lights should they be looking out for if they're thinking about retirement in the next few years?
Well, I'd start with a gut check. And it's interesting. For example, we've been experiencing a fantastic bull run in the market for 18 years. From 2009 to today, things have been great. And when things are going really well, like near the top of every economic bubble, whether it was the railroads, the automobiles, the internet, and now with AI, we've got all of these bubbles that near the peak of that bubble, everyone's excited about it. Every investment and asset manager out there is just overwhelmed with how great the market's doing. And there's so much excitement of people pouring their money into SpaceX and NVIDIA and all this AI stuff that we kind of know in our gut, something's got to give. But if we don't do something about it beforehand, that's when we end up getting trapped. So the first bit of stress, I would say, is a gut check. That should inspire us to take a look at our allocations and start looking at it from a bigger perspective. Well, I look at it this way. It's kind of like with most of these stocks and with the market right now, it's kind of like you took your money, you went to the casino, you gambled, and you won. And in that streak, it's really hard to walk away from the table because who knows how high it can go?
Right.
How much more can I get out of this? Mm-hmm. But at some point, there has to be some responsible decisions to say, you know what? I'm going to take the win. I'm going to take the win, even if I sacrifice that next 5-10% that I could get out of this with the benefit of not losing all of these massive returns that I've just made. Mm-hmm. We have to be willing to give up that little bit of potential so that we are able to keep what we have. So this is where I invite you to come in for a conversation. Let's have the opportunity to just have a conversation, get to know one another, and then we'll take a look at some things and find out, are there any red flags? does your financial projection have any check engine lights on it that need to get looked at? And then we can address them. It doesn't necessarily take much. Sometimes it's just a little bit of adjustment that makes a world of difference. So if you give us a call at 860-288-9977 and come in for a conversation, and let's put a plan together that you can feel really good about, knowing you can walk into the rest of your retirement years with confidence.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manument Podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts so that you never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Investment advisory services offered through Jabez Financial, LLC, a registered investment advisor firm. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Glenn Johnson, Connecticut Insurance, license number 4628409. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Jabez Financial, LLC. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Jabez Financial, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Jabez Financial, LLC is licensed in your state, please call 860-390-0093.